places. Get the tweets out. Get the tweets out. Light up the night. All right. Sweet. And that button. All right. The clickbaitiest tweet I've ever written. As I finish trying to get the last graphs done. How are you, Internet? Good evening, guys. It has been one hell of a week, right? Of course, the week I'm getting really busy at real work. The entire EVE economy goes batshit. So, at least I got that going for me. Alright, we're going to kill all those. We're going to keep all these. We're going to kill that and put better graphs in. We're going to get the PI graphs as well, because we just got the updates there. Ah, dude. I'm so sorry, Alonge. Well, I'm half sorry. I'm sorry about the items that keep going up. Seattle is good. Work is good. Hard, but good. Having a hard time playing the actual dev game, like that I'm expected to be a real hardcore dev. That is not the button I meant to press. This one, copy that. Are they? Oh, they did pop up, didn't they? Well, I'm glad about the Morphite. The Morphite is the one I was worried about. Zydrine popping up, like, that's... Damn it, Zydrine, just stay down. Just stay down. Make me right already. Okay, get the tweets out to everywhere. One more pass on the pimping. Just... I know. I'm always afraid I will lose money because there have been so many times that I've waited for the actual thing to hit. Oops. And things went down instead of up. But it turns out there's a lot of I overestimated the players this time. Oops, that's not the one I want to do it in. I'll do it in this one. We're going to talk about it. I promise. I'm sorry, guys. I really am. 'Cause to be honest, the stuff that happened with Citadel did not bounce the way I expected at all. There were a lot of pieces of the puzzle that just did a lot of strange things. The prices, so I'm only half wrong. There were a few that bounced around, and if you were good last weekend, you would have made a little bit more money than this than you would have this weekend. But Citadel did not do what I expected it to do, so we're going to talk about that a lot. As soon as I finish getting my fucking graphs, because this is taking forever to get the right graphs in the right places. Top 5 ships. Which I still don't love that graph, but I'll fix it eventually. Systems. And regions. Okay, do I actually have the 90-day view with Plex in it? Did I actually get that downloaded correctly? No. I swear I've tried like 4 times to download this stupid data. So we got 90. We're pointing at the correct data set. Let's try that one more time. Helps to get the right graph. I don't know what I'll do without the titular Plex graph. It's like my brand. So, how are you, Internet? How is your week going? Thank you, everybody who's tuning in. Looks like we've got about 25 watching live so far, which is good. We're doing good. Let's see, this week. Right, okay. So I thought that this week would be... So, if you guys haven't... If you're new fans to the show, you'll know that last summer I took a hiatus from the show during the summer months of June and July and August, because the news got slow and it was a good time to do some other work, and it just worked out better for everything not to broadcast over the summer. And I'm gonna probably do that again this year. I have some big to-dos I'd like to do, and that will depend on some IRL work stuff, to be honest. But what I want to be able to do, I'd like to be able to do that break. And so what I was expecting is that Citadel would give us 2 weeks of interesting work, and I could roll this down before Memorial Day and I could get the heck out of here. I was wrong, and Citadel is making a big fat mess, and we're gonna talk at a bit longer length about some things. I'm gonna do some extra content before we get to the end of the month. Specifically that Plex is in the news again, which means that I have to get, even though I don't really have the time specifically, I have to get the stuff out to start making content, so people come to the Prosper show and realize that I'm a super genius and the most humble EVE player around, and that's it's at a bad time. Got a really big project at work that I don't want to fuck up on. But this has given me a good opportunity to sort of put down some notes about Plex, because if I can be completely honest for just a minute, I get really, really annoyed about the general player base when it comes to Plex. Like, I don't mean to be a petulant jackass about it, but most people who have opinions about Plex, and if they're not market and trade discussion guys, they're usually talking shit. Like, they don't really know what they're talking about. And I don't mean to be like I am very smart, her. It's actually legitimately frustrating because I think you guys deserve better. That you should not have to follow false prophets, essentially. And so ever since Quant's talk at Vegas, I've wanted to get together a thing so that I can help you guys understand. Like, the whole point of this project is one half for me to learn things, because that's how selfish I am. There's a lot of this that I don't know about, and so getting a chance to work with some of the best and brightest in the field and try to solve problems in new and interesting ways, like, that's totally my bag. But the other thing is I don't think it should be as hard as people think it is. There are a lot of people make out the market to be this big, magical, mystical, completely unpredictable monster that only the super rich and turbo geniuses can somehow figure out. And it's markedly not true. Now, the other half of that coin is that there are some things going on, but as soon as we shine a light on them, I think a lot of the pieces fall into place. Like I should go do a talk about moon materials, and when you see how, like for instance, when you see that the way materials are clustered, it really brings a lot of the historical fighting into sharp focus, because you see, like, this region is worth this much a month in moon income because I can see them right there, and we can see the big clustering that's driving everything going around. And that's the sort of insight I want to give you guys. And so I've been working on a script to go do a thing. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it like a reaction video style where we get some of the stuff from CCP Quant's talk, and I pause it and we talk about things, and I don't know. But I want to make it so you guys can understand some of this, because I don't think it's as hard as a lot of people make it out to be, is, I guess, the moral of the story here. And I mean, it also comes down to that, because Plex is doing weird things, every fucking news outlet wants to write about it, and they're all very wrong. Like, most of the times I read about Plex, either you're just reporting the numbers, and that's boring, a robot can do that, or they're trying to, like, uphold some weird personal political thing, and it's just no, let's actually understand what's going on and stop trying to do Texas sharpshooting on it. So, oh my God, it's Phi. He's still alive. Aren't you supposed to be in a museum? Phi belongs in a museum. We have slides, I promise. I always have slides. So, I mean, that's what I'm going to try and do. We're going to see how that works this weekend. Get it out on YouTube, get it edited. And, yeah, because I'm not as smart as people think I am. I just have good tools. So I'd like to give that to you guys. And it means that I'm making new graphs, which, again, you should be following the Twitter account if you want to see shiny graphs, because that's where I post a lot of the stuff. You should also come hang out in the Tweetfleet Slack server, because I also post stuff there. And if you want to ask questions, there are a whole bunch of smart dudes there, like... and we got the Prosper channel, and there's the SCC Lounge channel, and there's the K162 Space channel. And you can get all of the information your heart desires about geeking out on nerdy stuff like this. So, let's see if we can get any more pings I have to do. I think I did all the pings. Got to keep talking. Filling the airspace. Airwaves. Let's see, what else can we cover? Oh, I need to put a picture of the work I did in the studio. I should put that in the show. I have a shiny looking studio now. It's pretty. Wherever the crap I put them. That one. There you go. Ah, oh, damn it. Why is that so poorly shaped? Grr. Oh, God. Ah, it's too big. Sucks. It's fine. I can do this. Let's actually do black. Black. Blacker than the blackest soul. Okay. And hopefully that doesn't look too shitty at full screen. It kind of does, but you guys come here for graphs, not photos. The Studio One isn't shitty. Probably is. It's less shitty. Yeah, let's do that. There you go. There, you guys can see my shiny studio, which once I turn off the fan, because I don't have AC, hopefully you guys can hear the difference, hear more of my sexy voice. That, yeah, you all come here for my voice talent, right? So let's see. Oh, and we crossed 2,000 YouTube subscribers, so woohoo. Thank you, everybody who subscribed. That is awesome. I never thought we'd get to 2,000, to be completely honest. I always thought that, like, that the total number of people on the planet who would want to watch this show couldn't possibly be higher than, like, 5,000. And to somehow get close to getting half of those people is just mind-boggling. So I got to thank everybody who tunes in. That's amazing. No, come on, it's James Earl Jones, right? Because I have the complexion for James Earl Jones. So, if you haven't tuned in to the show before, just a quick rundown of how the format works. We're going to start at the top of the hour, and then we're going to run through the show, which is a whole bunch of slides. I don't tend to answer questions during the show. Feel free to be active in either YouTube or Twitch chat, because I do watch both, and we'll talk about the things at the end. And then we do a 30-minute post-show Q&A where we talk about the topics you guys want to talk about. The graphs are all made using R, and the data is all publicly available. The Eve Central data, I can give to people if they want to do data science stuff, but sharing that regularly is a little bit difficult. If you guys want to, if you guys want that data, it's big. It's 20 gigabytes a year. So if you guys want that, give me a ping. Otherwise, the Crest data is all public, and I do have links to stuff that you guys can run at home if you want to do some of the candlesticking at the absolute least. Otherwise, we also use some statistical tools, which right now are kind of showing the rust around the edges at the moment, and that helps narrow down, go from effect to cause rather than cause to effect, which makes producing this show possible at all. So it links to all of that should be down in the channel info. It's 20 gigabytes a year per system. And we track 5 systems. And yeah, so I'm gonna try and get that open up. And let me go get the link because it's in a GIST. It's not on the thing normally. So let me get you guys thing. I did update the big one for you guys to the new Crest endpoints. So got at least that going for me. So links should be in the chats. Oops, if I press the right button. So you guys can run that in R. It doesn't need any connections other than an internet connection, and you just need to be able to look up type IDs and region IDs, and you guys can run through the history feeds whenever you want. Like I said, that stuff's easy to share, and that stuff's easy to design for. It's the amalgamated data that's a real pain in the ass, and it's more the logistics of, I don't have time to write a robust API and debug it and deal with users who are as bad as I am. And it's just a matter of manpower. I can get dumps to people if they want them. And if you want extended access, I do have some tools to help make that happen. But they require, you need to know how to use SQL. You need to know how to use MySQL and ODBC, or they're not user friendly. Once they're set up and you know how to do dev stuff, they're not bad because it's just run a couple of scripts with a couple of options. Like it's pretty simple stuff, but it's not like open up a spreadsheet. So dumps like a truck. That's right. So that's the thing. Oh, and I promised one of the dudes last week that I would have put the chat in the pre-show at least. I should have made a thing for that. I'm sorry. We'll do it next week. So we got 5 minutes before the show starts. I got to fill up 5 more minutes. What stupid thing? Oh, nope. Can't tell you guys about that. I got to pull a Johnson on that one. That sucks. Friggin' sucks. The main news topic, and I get NDA blocked. I love spreadsheets too, but the whole point of the show is to do higher level analysis than spreadsheets can do. And iCub is asking how the Market Watcher works. There should be links in the Twitch chat. It's It's not user friendly at the moment. Security through obscurity at this point. So all the tools there to get the data are there. And the analyzer works off of Crest data, so it stands alone. You can boot it up and run the analysis on your own. The thing that's not tracked in that repository right now is the R scripts that I do to make some of the other things run. To make some of the other graphs. It's part of it is that R is awful. Well, no, part of it's Mac is awful, and I had to go mess with the ODBC connections. So there's some stuff I don't want committed, like database credentials, and I need to work on bringing that in anyway. So, ooh, jeez. That's a good question. I do not track Antikythera because it's too young and it doesn't show up in my stuff. Because I need to fix the stat script. So, the quick 5-minute story about the scripts is that if you guys go read the blog under the code tag, there is some. I've written, between me and a friend, we've written some, what the fuck? We've written some statistical tools that help make the process a lot better. That looks at the statistical change of items more than the absolute change of items. And that needs to be rewritten. Working behind the scenes to do that. But the way I want to engineer that is pretty big. The goal, so there's 2 big goals I have in mind. One is to make it so... oops, that would be part of the problem. One is to make the event information much bigger, so we can track like dozens of models. The goal is to get something like 2 dozen or 3 dozen models together, going over industrial data and margin data and cross-market data and Z-Killboard data and ratting data, and put all that stuff together so that we can use multiple flags together in a bigger system to better understand the market. The goal is to make the tools flexible enough and not require wow, rude. Banned. To make the tools good enough that we can start doing some better stuff under the hood. We can combine a lot more methods together, and because right now the flagging methods we have produce a lot of false positives, which I could talk for an hour about statistical methodologies and false positive rates. Yeah, I've been getting actual trolls and actual hate. You guys should see the YouTube comments because they're just slightly rude. It's great. Please stop being rude. Like, I already get enough of my rude from Rocket League. Thank you very much. So it's that they look for things that change more than the actual specific levels. So like the tool understands, for instance, how many Plex are traded daily on average, and it understands that as a range, not as a flat number. And so as time goes forward, it will move that goalpost around because, oh well, Plex was really hot when skill trading launched, and So for the first couple of weeks, we saw Plex trading, Plex flagging in the system. But now that Plex has been at that level sustained for a while, the tools are smart enough to adjust on the fly, to go do that for everything. So I want to go build more of those. Right now we only have 3 models, and they're only running on Crest data, and we have a lot more data than just Crest data that I really want to get leverage on. I also need to rewrite the plotting script so that we can get more plots out to you guys, because I know you guys love the graph porn. I love making it. I'm trying to convince my boss to change my real life job title to graph pornographer. We'll see if that actually sticks. It probably won't. So with that, we are just past the top of the hour. Let me go ahead and get the show queued. Like I said, we're going to start the show, and don't tend to answer questions during the show, but we'll have at least a 30-minute Q&A after the show. And we might have Caleb on if he doesn't fall asleep at his keyboard, because, oh man, do we have things to talk about. So let me go ahead and get that show actually started. Oh, shit, the fan. You guys don't want to hear the fan. Good evening, and welcome to the latest episode of the Eve Prosper Market Show. We're here to talk about market news, industrial trends, and other important economic news across Eve. So without further ado, let's get started where we usually do and talk about some very quick show news. First, I want to thank everybody who tunes in on YouTube. We finally crossed the 2,000 subscribers line, which absolutely flabbergasts me. You guys continue to surprise me with how many people enjoy this show, because I'm always afraid that I am just far too niche, and I will have finally worn out my welcome. So thanks again, everybody who tunes in, everybody who subscribes. Next, if you want to follow the show, again, all you got to remember is Eve Prosper. That'll get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and the blog. We also, let's see, also that after FanFest and Citadel's launch, Plex is big in the news this week, so I am working this weekend to get you guys a everything you never wanted to know about Plex presentation, something in the 20 to 40 minute range, trying to figure out the exact pieces still. Looking to crunch that out over the weekend, so please stay tuned, especially on YouTube, because that's where that should be released. Also maybe the blog. Last, before we get into the show proper, I got to thank our patrons. Without our patrons, this show would not be possible. We provide this show free of ads every week. They keep the lights on. They keep the software bills paid. They keep the server space paid for. They make this show possible. If you can at all, if you get value out of the show, please stop by our Patreon and throw $1 or $2 in the jar. It really means a whole hell of a lot. If you can't contribute monetarily, we totally understand. That is absolutely fine. Go tell all your friends to watch the Eve Prosper show, and make sure to reach out to me on our Tweetfleet Slack. Information on how to join should be down in the channel info below. If you want to get in touch with me directly and tell me about your wins and your losses economically, I do like hearing about my hits my misses as much as I like hearing about my hits. So without further ado, let's go ahead and move right into the show. One last bit of pre-show news. I want to give a shout out to the patrons because thanks to them we have I have a home studio now. Like, got to put up all those nice sound tiles. We have the nice mic that you guys enjoy every week. This wouldn't be possible without the patrons because my wife would have thrown me out. So that's where you guys' patron money goes. It goes to making the show and making the show better. Looking to get into some hardware, but we're gonna talk about those plans a bit more closer to June. There's going to be a whole push in June. We're going to talk about it. But I wanted to go ahead and make sure people who do contribute understand that it does go somewhere, and that the show sounds as good as it does is thanks to you guys. With that, let's go ahead and move straight into the news. The big news is that Citadel launched, and there are a buttload of bugs. Key among them is some issues with buy orders and the UI not reporting the correct information. Unfortunately, I have been far too busy IRL to keep a really close finger on this particular issue, so be sure to be checking out the Eve status pages for updates on that. I expect CCP to have it fixed sooner rather than later, but that's the big news there. And also that the other big piece of news is actually pertinent to the show. What the fuck, Plex? So let's talk about Plex. Plex went completely haywire yesterday, and there's going to be a lot of speculators who are going to be talking about a lot of things. And we're going to see a lot of news outlets and blogs talking, and Reddit, oh my God, Reddit, talking about what they think about Plex and why it's doing the things. And most of them are going to be wrong. And so this is why I'm trying to get out for you guys a real guide, more of a tutorial about what's going on underneath the hood, so you guys can understand better how Plex works. Because to be honest, I don't think most of the Redditors and bloggers and pundits really understand all of the pieces that go into Plex. So hashtag flash crash is really the best thing I have to say about this right now. We're going to go, I got to walk gingerly around this because I'm of two minds when it comes to reporting the specific news here. And we're going to do this in a little bit of a weird order. If you guys were watching Reddit yesterday, there was so much news about the crashing prices and the incredible buy order value in the stop orders, which are designed to you put up a big order at a price that you don't want the item to go below, and that means that somebody has to sell through you to get below that price. That's what a stop order does. You can also do them as going up. It's a popular trend. If you can understand the swing plus or minus a few percentage points, you just put in a bigger order at a target price, and as the price rises or falls through it, you get your order filled, is the idea. So you don't end up at the very top or the very bottom, but you end up getting the stuff fixed. You get your stuff for what may be a better price than the one-isk kind of guys. So we saw all over Reddit a big crash as just what is that, 25 trillion-isk worth of buy orders were put into stop the price fall, which buy orders slumped all the way down to into the 850 range, which is just absurd. Unfortunately, zooming in on this, as sensational as it is and how interesting it may be, as interesting as it may be for as a news piece, isn't strictly useful, I believe, as a way to talk about the greater market, because this event. Okay, we're gonna zoom out a little bit. So this event means that everybody has their tinfoil hats on. Everybody wants to know why somebody decided to blast through some 20,000 buy orders of Plex, and how they could have possibly done it. So we're not going to talk about the how, because there's a particular piece of mechanics that is a little bit hard to explain. That's perfectly useful. If you guys know about margin trading scams, you can do a little bit more to help you get a lot of orders filled without having to pay the full escrow. Instead, I want to go point at CCP Quant, who responded in a bit of a thread knot on Reddit yesterday, about speculation that this is CCP's doing, that they're trying to manipulate the price of Plex for game things. And he came up with two very, very important quotes that I think we should all remember going forward. He also talked about how CCP does not tend to intervene, and that the only times that they have directly intervened have been more experimentation and have been more about experimentation than about actually fixing the market. And to be honest, CCP has not done any direct action since Dr. Iyo left, to be completely clear. So Quant said in his TLDR that CCP does not directly affect Plex prices. The only time we indirectly do so is when we have Plex sales. But that is a very transparent way of doing this, so traders can do their own speculation and measurements on the market when these campaigns are live. So the only thing that they have, the only tool in their tool belt economically in the shorter terms are Plex sales. And this is more of a promotional tool than a price-fixing tool. I want to remind everyone that Plex basically runs on its own accord. It's not really tied to anything else in-game. Like, everything looks to Plex, but like the price of Tritanium does not move the price of Plex, for instance. And then he also added in his comment, which was my favorite part, it is much easier and better for everyone to simply change the rules of the game or throw new toys in the sandbox than to risk completely messing up the EVE economy with ISK injections. And he goes into some depth about the economic hurdles of injecting ISK and Plex into the markets. And it's a piece that I think a lot of junior armchair game developers don't really understand the complexities of the ISK sink and faucet system, and that injecting large pools of ISK or pulling those in and out of the EVE economy is just as dangerous as doing it in the real life economy. So like you don't see Janet Yellen getting up there from the Fed and just being on a whim like, oh, we're gonna do all this stuff. Like, they sit there for months and years and talk about, well, how long should we run quantitative easing? And like, it's not something that's done lightly, because they know that any movement, the devs know that any movement they make that's strictly economic will be overanalyzed and will be beaten before it launches. And it could be the ripples just become unmanageable. Whereas throwing new game mechanics in mean that the responses are second and third order and have more to do with the way people are using the game and less about the strict economy of the game. So with that bit of a rant, which took up a big chunk of my time this week, I want you guys to know not to worry about the flash crash. We're back near 1 billion right now. We may see some weakness going into the weekend. And again, I still have that open buy advice that you should be stocking up. Any price under $1 billion is a good one. The word of caution I have in the long term. So if you guys are looking to stash ISK in Plex, this is a bit of a warning to you guys, is that I don't expect the rises in Plex to be as generous going forward. We may be back to 1.4 by the end of the year, in November, October, like we usually see the rises in Plex. And if I go back a couple of slides, we usually see spikes in September and October are the historical high points. And we might get back to 1.2 or 1.3, but I think there has been enough change in the game from Aegis Saw, from Fozzie Sov, and from Citadel, and from skill trading, and some of the sort of backhanded sideways nerfs that are going on to the ISK fountain system, to make the rise back to the 1.2s and 1.3s and 1.4s really unsustainable. So I think that 1 billion we're going to be locked in at for a decent amount of time. If you can get under the 1 billion line, it's a good buy. But with the new tax system, you also have to remember that it needs to rise 5% to get your money back if you're buying buy orders. And that means that the margins are going to get a little bit wider between buy and sell. It means that you're going to have to either be okay with a little bit more loss than we've seen in the past. I think things are really going to slow down on Plex, especially going into the summer. So I think it's a good time to buy in. I think prices are going to stay stable, but do not at all expect them to rise significantly out of this 1.0 billion space anytime soon. With that, let's talk real quick about other RMT services. Again, the interesting thing I've been harping on is that the price for skill extractors has been at parity with Plexes. We're seeing a little bit of extra weakness because of the panic in the Plex flash crash. And so it'd be a great chance to stock up on buy orders for skill extractors. Absolutely. Like if you guys want an investment strategy, I think that one's a far better investment at the moment. Because that's going to get snapped back into lockstep with Plex. And for a short-term vehicle, extractors are a far better vehicle than Plex at the moment. Also, multiple pilot training certificates, if you're playing your game right, are not bad, but have the risk of being lower volume. So that's where we are. And I continue to be amazed that the resculpt certificates keep tracking up to close to the parity line, because I always thought nobody wanted to ever use those. So that's at least a interesting note when you normalize for RM. Next, let's talk about skill injectors. We're still seeing prices stay very strong. And again, I know somebody commented last week that I need to move the axes to the other side of the graph. I'm sorry, I forgot. Ran out of time this week. We're still seeing ISK per skill point valuations stay high in the 800s. The buy floor for this has fallen a bit, again, thanks to the Plex flash crash. I think it's a good chance to stock up if you are a buyer. In the short term, this is a good chance to get in on some cheaper elements of this. I don't know how much it will rise or fall. I think that we're in a good place for it to rise, thanks to demand from Citadel skills being the Citadel skill pack. I think is a little bit unexpected from players. We were just talking in the SCC Lounge Discord, and I really need their name before I butcher it. It's just not fair not to give them credit. Right. Marsha Mello was talking about their skill injector experience and their strategies, and the thing I expect was her point specifically was that There are a lot of new drone skills, a lot of new logistical skills, and a lot of new gunnery skills, all of which are on different maps. And so even if you are perfectly spec'd for one map, you're kind of screwed on the other maps. And I think skill injectors are a great place to be offsetting some of that off-map work. And so I'm not sure exactly what it'll do in the next week or 10 days, but I think by the end of the month, we'll see the prices rise up a little bit further, maybe up to the 850 ISK per skill point, as long as the panic in Plex doesn't continue. And if we look directly at the skill injector market, again, we can see this big dip because of the flash crash down to 600, but I think we'll be right back at 650 by the end of the weekend. Again, big quotes around that, as long as Plex doesn't slip much further. I don't think it can go below 950. I think that's as low a decent price goes. Anything lower than 950, I think, triggers a whole bunch of people to absorb all of that downward pressure and hold it at 950. Like Plex is still useful. Plex is still valuable. I think that the steady state price has to stay near 1 billion. And as long as we get back to 1 billion, I think skill injectors will be back at around just under the 650 mark. Moving on to the market indexes, and that did not come out as well as I had hoped. I thought I was cool. I am not. Working on a little bit of draft here. One of the things I've been wanting to report to you guys is some market indexes, so we can go point at some lines and talk about some gross trends. The problem is that I don't tend to like a lot of indexes I think are crap. Like if the Dow Jones moves up or down 20 points, what are you going to do with your stock portfolio? Literally nothing, because it's meaningless to anyone except the people who are actual quants. Like I want to give you guys the sort of I want to give you guys information that's useful. I really want to boil these down into extremely useful nuggets so that I can reduce some of the slide deck down and talk about things in simpler terms. So what we're looking right now is the net trade value. And so that's taking the crest feed, the same market history feed, and multiplying average price by volume sold in the Forge region. And then I went ahead and broke this out by, and that's filtered down to be a bit of a special list. It's a little bit more constrained than the flagging list we use for the show. So it removes all of the high meta items. It removes all the BPOs and skills and all of that. And we go ahead and get down to just brass tacks, and we can sort of see what's going on. So I went ahead and highlighted the ship markets. That's every ship traded in JITA. The material trade, that's minerals, PI, salvage, moon products, all of those all put together. And then the RMT trade, which is the upper limit. And then I went ahead and put a logarithmic bound on the axis just to sort of get the scales to not be completely washed out. And I think this is useful academically to talk about the way that the market is split up and to sort of highlight the fact that the RMT market is its own beast. And I think a lot of people believe that Plex is tied into the game stronger than it actually is, where it actually accounts for its own thing, and it's, even though some of the peaks and valleys might line up, it's off on its own, in its own world, to be completely honest. The other interesting trend here that I didn't expect when I pulled up the data is the general positive line in the ship and material trade. Now, I expected the ship line to be moving a lot higher and the material line to be moving lower around that 118.3 line because of the World War B activity that I expected more consumption of ships and more stockpiles getting liquidated from materials, and that would screw up the actual things. But turns out that washes out, and it didn't actually make. You see a couple of waves here, right at the start of March when World War B really kicked off in earnest, and you see a bit of a move right here when skill trading was specifically released. But beyond that, they stay in relative lockstep with each other. You see the weekend peaks and the weekday valleys. Again, getting to my buy on a Thursday and sell on a Sunday kind of advice. And we can see that things are trending generally upwards. And we might be seeing some of that heat dissipating. What was a relatively strong positive line has been flattening out into Citadel. I expect there to be a bit of a peak in the next weekend that's a little bit out of range here, and then I expect to cool into June. We'll see if that holds. I've got some more graphs in the works for this, so and we're going to talk about this when I go into my deep dive for Plex. So we will be back on this graph for sure. Feel free to send feedback to Eve Prosper. I would love to hear if you guys love this graph or hate this graph or want me to stop talking about it. That'd be great. Moving on to minerals. Minerals have been interesting this week. I expected things did not move as I strictly expected. I thought that everyone would have their bets locked in loaded for Citadel, and it turns out CCP surprised a lot more people than I expected. And so we continue to see Tritanium staying weak. I expected it to track up a bit. We're seeing it since close track up. This might be because people are panicking and getting out of Plex to try and store their wealth somewhere maybe a little more positive. This might be people trying to buy their materials to build their citadels, even though they should have already been prepared, to be completely honest. We're not seeing a whole lot of movement in the volume sector, though, so I don't know if this price increase to 6.6 is really sustainable. Pyrite is staying weak under the 10.6 line. And again, we're seeing a similar behavior that we may be seeing a flight out of Plex into minerals as a way to store wealth. Or we might be seeing that people are buying into get stocked into their citadels. And again, the price is tracking back up to 11, but the volume has stayed pretty even. So again, I expect these spikes in pyrite and tritanium to turn around. So if you guys are bought into these, I would be sold before the weekend. But we'll talk about why I might not be right in a few minutes. Mexilon again continues to be weak. This one I actually expected to bounce a lot harder, but it hasn't. We're still staying weekly under 60. If you guys, so I still want to say this is a buy because new capitals need to be built. Capital metas are showing a lot of strength in the PvP metas, and we may see capital fights stirring up over the summer. And we're still seeing volumes supplied of Mexilon stay very, very high. And so if you had a bunch of money and you want to sit on it for a little bit, I kind of like Mexilon. But I've also said I kind of like Mexilon for like 6 months now. And you know how well that's worked out. So I think sub 60 is a good buy-in. I have a hard time believing you're really going to lose money sub 60. So at the absolute minimum, you're not going to lose money other than the taxes. But I think that as faxes and combat carriers and all of the new capital module metas start to take hold, I think Mexilon's going to get really popular. And so I think sub 60 is a good place to be buying in, especially with those really low buy orders under the 55 mark. Like I would go and slurp up some of those 55s to be completely honest, because I think that this volume trend is actually going to turn around in the next 6 weeks. Moving on to Isogen, we've been seeing it we've seen it stay weak for the last few weeks, but it has looked to have bottomed out at about 90. I had been saying for a while that I expect the steady state to be around 100, but supplies continue to be pretty healthy. Supplies have been turning around, so I expect the prices to rise into the weekend. Unfortunately, I don't know if I can tell you guys full 5% to really beat the taxes. Again, that 85 buy order is extremely tempting to me, but Isogen has been really weak, and it's still a bit of a falling knife to be trying to catch, so invest at your own risk on this one. Noxium looks like it has finally hit its bottom at 440. We've been seeing a lot of extra supply coming out of nullsec as places evac, and it looks like we might start seeing the slump turning around. We're at a bit of a weird spot in the graph that it could go either way, and so I don't really want to give you guys a hard buy on this one. I still don't think the Noxium quantities are high enough to really make this a good investment boat. But it looks like we've topped out on the volume supplied, and I expect this to come back down by about a third over the next 60 days. And that should lead to a price up to about 450. Now, I don't really want to go charting above 450 where we are right now. I don't really think this is a great. I don't think this is a great vehicle at the moment, but that's where we are on Noxium. Zydrene is really interesting. Zydrene has been on a slump for months now, especially after all of the nullsec evacing, and we've been under 1100. I keep having a target of 1000. I've said that for a few months now. And it looks like we got close a couple of times over the last week or so, but somebody is buying out supplies again. Again, this is probably due to some panic around Plex and wanting to put your money somewhere smarter, somewhere a little less scary, because right now Plex is really fucking scary. But instead, people, I think, are looking for some more traditional places to go put money that might be a little less bad. I don't like this 1200 price. I still think that's way overvalued, especially given the complete volume on the market at the moment. So if you're bought in, I think 1200 is a great sell. I think we're going to come back down to about 1150 before we start trending up again. Megasite has stayed relatively flat. Again, we're still seeing that little bit of pop. Still think it's the same story. We're seeing a little bit less supply here in the Megasite markets ahead of Citadel, so this may have been somebody stocking up. So that's at least interesting. The buy order pressure is also driving a little bit higher than I expected. And then my personal favorite darling, Morphite, has finally looked to have turned the corner. I have been saying for a while, sub 10K I think is a decent buy price, especially if you're a Tech 2 producer. Supplies have been really strong. Stockpiles have been coming to market. And we're back over 10K at the moment. So if you'd bought in at 9.5, this would be a good chance to be selling. I don't know how much higher this can go. I wouldn't shoot for anything higher than 10.5. 11 if you get really lucky. I still think there's a lot of stockpiles, and that as we go up a little bit, we'll see people liquidating their stocks. And if you are held into Morphite as an investment strategy, again, I'd want to be out of this by June, to be completely honest, because I don't know what's going to happen past June. Just as I have a hard time predicting beyond there in this particular case. If you guys give me just 2 seconds. Okay, we're back. Let's talk about fuel real quick. Fuel is particularly interesting. Again, this is a case of everywhere I thought that would be high activity was not, and everywhere that I thought would be low activity was high activity kind of thing. I expected a lot more action in the fuel isotope markets with Citadel's launching. Now, this might be just delayed until Citadels actually get launched, which should take about a week. So this may get delayed. This may be a great chance to be buying in on some low slots. Fuel blocks, again, are trending where you expect. Nothing's really out of line. The Amar fuel block is a little bit lower than I would expect, but that should be corrected any moment now. Again, the fuel block markets, I think, are going to trend slightly downward into the next week as people who have been hearing that PI is a good place to invest are liquidating out of the lower end PIs instead of the higher end PIs. So I think that we're going to see a lot of extra supply there. Nitrogen isotope specifically, my one I can't really call, is staying steady right under 950. The volumes are staying relatively steady. I expected more supply. I expected us to stay closer to 200 million. But until the new masters take over their spaces from Imperium, I think we're going to see this stay particularly constrained. If you're feeling a bit risky, I think this is a decent buy, especially if you can get on buy orders. Aiming for 900, settling for 950, not 950, 925. I think those are good. It's a good chance to be buying in and stocking up at least somewhat. I hesitate to say to put more than 2 to 5 billion in there, especially since I know that a lot more people have been watching this show. And so if I say to go buy something, I expect a lot of people to jump on it. That's why I'm a little reserved about telling you guys what to buy. But I think this might pop up over the 950 line, maybe cresting the 1K line in the next week, 14 days kind of thing. So I think that there is a good opportunity to jump into this before this weekend and make a quick buck. And then strontium is tracking down because with the pressure from World War B subsiding, we're seeing supplies track up and prices track back down. I know I said last week that the traditional indicators... Excuse me, hold on. Oh my God, gross. That the traditional indicators said that the prices would go up and that I thought they were crap. I think that's still the case. I'd be putting a price target for 4K here in the next couple of weeks. I think that the prices will turn around before we hit 4K as Citadel fuel blocks hit the market. So that's a thing. Jeez, guys, I didn't think I'd offend you so much by hacking a loogie. Allergies, man. It is nasty. It'll be out of the edit. You guys all get to enjoy it, though. Moving on to the outliers. I went ahead and brought the ranges in a bit tighter this week. So we can talk about what's going on in the last 30 days and how I expect things to turn out. I have been saying for the last few weeks that I expect some dips to happen in the advanced material markets thanks to things shaking out in the base moon material markets, specifically in the middle, things like nanotransistors, things like nanotransistors, phenolic composites, the ferrogel, fulleриdes. I expect those to sort of dip in the short term and bubble as we see the prices sort of go through a slump. The specifics of when, where, and how much I don't have the time to tell you guys here on this show. It's going to require more analysis, but I think it's a good spot to jump in. Like if you're looking right now, hypersynaptic fibers are particularly high, and if you had followed some of my advice, you might have been able to jump on that. But like ceramic fibers are still tracking down. Phenolic composites haven't really moved yet. I think those are still have a fall in them. Fermionic condensates are fluctuating a bit. Yeah, I think that there's going to be some opportunities here. I just don't know exactly when, where, and how much. But the math should not be that hard to go figure it out. Moving on to P4s, and I'm going to go ahead, the entire chat room, go ahead and lambaste me, crucify me for giving you bad advice last week. My advice last week was to get out while the getting's good, because as long as you made a profit, that's what counts. I've seen far too often where people are like, I'm going to buy in, and the action happens, and we hit the price, and then they're like, no, but I'm going to hold into the actual release, and the price slumps. We saw this with Odyssey and things like Technetium. We saw this with Recons. We've seen this pattern over and over again, and I didn't want you guys to get caught. So that's my not apology for saying that you at least made money, so don't be mad at me for making money. But I do owe you guys an apology that a lot of these have been tracking up still. So your self-harmonizing power cores, your nanofactories, your organic mortar applicators, which is one I really did not expect to keep going up, are all tracking up, where wetware mainframes have stayed steady and broadcast nodes haven't moved too much. This is my bad on my part. I was thinking that a lot more people would be racing to market with their stockpiles, and that after 6 months of talking about it, the secret would be over. But I was wrong. I overestimated the competency of the Eve player base. So, mea culpa, and send your hate mail to Eve Prosper. And I'm sorry I didn't make you as much money as I should have. So that's my bad. I owe you guys beers at like Eve Vegas. Moving out to, we'll talk about that at the end of the show, Tungsten. Moving on to triage modules. We talked about these last week, and I didn't expect them to keep climbing. I expected these to stay where they were at, what's that, 15 million? 150 million? Sorry, 150 million. And because this was, if you had one of these attached to your carrier, it would be magically transformed into a fax machine with 14.4 kbps and color copies and second line connection. But the prices kept tracking up. Now, if you're bought into these, I'd be selling. It's time to get out. The party's over. That it's gone this high, I think, is great. If you're producing, I'd get out of this party because I think it's going to come crashing down back to 100 million over the weekend. But we'll see. I know. I'm sorry, guys. Next is the covert ops cloaking device. We saw it bottom out, and prices are tracking back up, but volumes are down. The truth of it is that I think that the price is probably due to some of the material costs. And I think that this rise is just temporary, or it's actually a correction. We saw oversupply as the Goonies had to get rid of all their covert ops ships, so they can't move around space anymore. I think it's a great chance to buy in, especially if you want to go and harass ratters once things cool down in places like Vale. But I don't know about this as an investment as an investment vehicle. And then another interesting one, if you guys have been following the news, is the 425 millimeter railgun 2 was extremely popular for about a week as the Imperium changed from Macarials to into, what are they, Megathrons, and then a week later abandoned that meta. So prices are crashed back down. It's this party's over. Sorry, guys. And sorry again, Iron Bank. I didn't mean to give you too much crap about that. With that, we're going to go ahead and go over our predictions real quick, as this is turning into the longest show I've ever done. Dysprosium is one I've kept a hand on, and the prices continue to stay low. I do expect this to turn around. I do expect it to turn around soon, like next 2 weeks soon. I just don't know how high it will go once it turns around. We're seeing the volumes finally flush out. And once we cross under this 1.5 million line for sell orders, I think we're going to see some upward momentum over the 70K line, hopefully heading towards 75K, but we'll see if new masters can keep it that way. Another one that we've been keeping an eye on is Quaff Zero, which again, I told you 2 weeks ago to sell. And I told you last week, no, really sell, that you weren't going to get better than 8 million. And we're seeing the pattern repeat again that we've seen before, where it goes a little bit over the parity point and then people get greedy and it comes back down. So went up to 8 real briefly and then is settling in at 7. Again, if you have this and you bought in real low, it's still an okay time to sell. But I would not want to be holding Quaff Zero after June 1st, because there's a Serpentis event coming up, and Serpentis like drugs, and yeah, there's going to be more Quaff Zero. Like that prediction I feel pretty secure in. And CCP Fozzie will ruin this for me. So go ahead and like make a Vine of that and troll me, CCP Fozzie. Next is the Rattlesnake, which was extremely high last couple of weeks because of disrupted ratting activity, and a lot of these things were dying. But that party also seems to be over. Finally washed everything out, and we're back at sort of a steady state. We might see it turn around if you want to get real risky. 375 million. It might go up a little bit, but aiming for 400, I think, is a bit of a fool's errand. And then geckos, RIP geckos. Geckos are no more a thing. Stop trying to make geckos a thing. Now that carriers can't use these anymore, I expect these to tank even further, getting back down to 40 million. I don't know if it's going to be specifically burn all of them and RIP geckos forever, or if it's just going to be a slow trod down there. But geckos are over. I'm sorry, guys. I love geckos. I think they're great for your Gylas and rattlesnakes and anything that needs any regular subcap that needs drones. But since they can't be used in carriers anymore, they're unfortunately over. And last but not least, the violence report with the colors that I still need to fix. The list is looking a lot like last week, with Archons staying high. The interesting new addition this week is ship maintenance arrays. Were particularly hot this week. Also, I still don't know how so many Stratioses die. They're up here every week, but the market prices don't move. So that's pretty interesting. No Ishtars on the list this time. Next, for popular solar systems to die in, are Jita's back on the map again, and Saranin is still has seen its action, but is quieting down. O1Y TAC ED, though, keeps tracking up. For all of that propaganda that's going on, the Eve Reddit, they sure are following up with some pretty impressive kill numbers. Values aren't too high at the moment, not getting outside of Jita particularly, but activity counts are still pretty high. And then regions, Fade is interesting on this list. The first time we've seen it on this list. Pure Blind continues to be popular, but Citadel is back on the list again, and Black Rise and Lone Trek, with Tama, I believe. And with that ends one more Prosper show. I want to thank everybody who tuned in live this week. We had another great turnout at, holy crap, almost 100 people. Like, actually, no, 100 people. Thank you so much. I've never had a stream this successful. Also, I want to thank everybody who is subscribed. Be sure to follow us on all of the platforms. All you got to remember is Eve Prosper. That'll get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and the blog. We just crossed 2,000 YouTube subscribers, and I got to thank every single one of you guys. That is absolutely astounding. I didn't think we'd ever get above like 1,500, to be completely honest. Actually, I still didn't think we'd get over 1,000 because I think that there are only like 10 nerds just like me, and you guys prove me wrong every week, and I really appreciate it. If you guys like the show and you get value out of it and you want to support the show, the best way to do so is through Patreon at patreon.com/EveProsper. Our patrons keep us on the air every week, and they make this show possible. It's ad-free. We don't gate any content. It keeps servers running in the cloud. It keeps our bills paid, and it makes it so that I can do this show for you guys every week and not have to worry about it. And I got to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. If you can support us, it really means the world. But if you can't support us, I totally understand. We totally understand if you can't support us monetarily. That is absolutely fine. We produce the show for you guys for free. That's great. Be sure to tell all of your friends about the best market show in all of Eve. Sorry to Lone Wolf. And be tuned to us on YouTube and Twitter for a breakdown on Plex coming out this weekend. And lastly, but not leastly, come check out our room on the Tweetfleet Slack. That's the very best place to get in touch with me off the air. I don't tend to be in-game very often, so come chat with me on the Tweetfleet Slack. Information on how to join should be down in the channel info below. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. I've been your host, Lockefox. This is the Eve Prosper Show, and I will see you guys all next week. Holy crap. That show was huge. Oh, God, that was almost an hour. Ugh. As I hack up a lung. Oh my God, 100 of you dudes. I can't believe it. So, that were questions. Let me go answer questions real quick. Right after I ping him. Let's see. Tungsten wanted to know about Type D nanofibers, and we can pull it up, but let's see. Let's go start way at the top. So, doop. Reading all the notes. Oh, you probably want that. Let's do that so you guys don't have to look at my my desktop. Doop. Brent of Froan, I swear I've answered this question for you. What do I do IRL? I went to school for electrical engineering. Oops. I need that to not pop up. And I did hardware test, memory testing before, and then now I do software test so that I can make graphs for a living. Working with one of the guys who helped me do a lot of the behind the scenes on this show. Let's see. More things. Don't hack up a lung on the air because then everybody complains. That's go ahead and learn that. I don't have a good hardware mute button. I don't know why, but about 30 minutes in, I get this thing at the back of my throat. All right, Tungsten. Let's see. I got to go find the type ID. Type D. Type D something something. God damn it. You guys are going to make me look it up in actual database land. That is not the right one. That is the right one. Type D nanofiber internal structure is 5599. Let me go over here. Here you guys can see how it do. Like that. Let me go over here. Where the fuck is it? That one. We go here. Do that. We turn off that. And that. And there's one other thing I have to do. Oh, yeah. Last 60 days. Run that. Yeah, the R stuff is common source. It's not showing up in Crest. And to pull the Eve Central data is going to take too long to make compelling radio. So sorry, Tungsten, we're not going to get a closer look at that tonight. Why do you think Plex is dropping? So we're going to get Caleb on to talk about why the general trend in Plex, I think. Yeah, and R is open source. It's free. It doesn't quite talk like MATLAB. I found it easy to transfer from SAS Jump over to R, so how Quant makes his graphs is the same way I make mine. Whole bunch of cute puns in the Twitch chat. Thanks, Loud Noises, for the encouragement that I can actually do this show. Unlike the troll I got earlier. That's like the first time I've actually had a real troll. Watch, I'll get swatted next week. Ugh. And Tambors, I have a hard time calling myself an electrical engineer right now. Since I'm not doing anything with hardware these days, it's all software. I was doing hardware as of February. Did memory testing, but now I'm doing full software test, and I'm in network security, and I know so little about it, but I'm learning every day. So, Amar faction ships are going to be interesting. Firebrim, I believe you, but the thing is that until the direction changes, until it goes from positive to negative or negative to positive as a trend line, my tools won't pick it up. So you have one up on my automation. iCub is asking in YouTube if I think buying and building Citadels is a good idea. I think they're a new feature and they're totally worth using. I like Citadels. The XLs I think are a little ostentatious. I really like the large, but that's because I am a low-sec faction warfare guy at heart, and I have a hard time knowing what to do with an XL. I'm hoping that they get a lot of use, but there's some weird things about their use and where they go. And again, we should probably bring Caleb in to talk about some of that. And I know he's waiting in the wings and just getting really annoyed every time I tell him that we're going to turn to Caleb in just a minute. Building off of copies is probably a smart idea in the short term, unless you're really invested to go put like 100 billion ISK on the thing. And I mean, there are investors who can and who will, and that's fine. But the sort of investor that has, I always imagine that the target investor for this show is working with anywhere from 1 billion to 10 billion ISK as a working purse. The advice works below 1 billion. The thing is that if you're working with less than 1 billion, you need to really worry about getting maximizing margins, and the sort of things you're willing to do that are harder to track for the show. It doesn't make compelling show. And then anything above 10 billion ISK, well, that's a special class of investing that requires, you probably know just as much as I do if we're talking about more than 10 billion, and you're just using me to diversify your portfolio. So that's how I expect the audience to sort of work out. And I've always sort of pushed people towards 1 billion as a magic number to get started on projects. It's a great place to start production, T2 production. It's a great place it's a great starting unit to get into things. And then people always ask what to do with the money, like Trisket. And it really depends on where you are and what you're doing and what you enjoy doing. So production works really great from 1 to 5 billion. If you're willing to do the legwork, I love Tech 2 production. The margins are going to be really wacko for the next, week or so, as the ripples from the, flash crash go through the market and screw things up. The other thing is that I really like, supplying low sec kind of things, going for people, that trying to provide services for people who, luxury services, essentially, where you say, I'm going to make sure that you have your equipment and you are going to pay me a big fat margin for it. And so I really like fitted ship contracts. I love fitted ship contracts. POS reactions, if you're researched into that market or can get a decent moon in your chain. All of those are really good. Drugs I tend to stay away from because they require a buttload of work. They can make a fuckload of money. You can make a fuckload of money off drugs. Hello, FBI. Fuckload of money off of drugs. The thing is that it requires a lot of legwork to make that money. So getting cashed out is extremely difficult. And Trisket, I supplied my corp. So we knew what our metas were, and then I had a spreadsheet that helped make it so I could supply those quickly and easily. And if you email me in game or PM me through something, I'll send you a link to it. I don't like sending it out to the world, but it's there, and I'm willing to help people on a one-on-one basis for that one. With that, let's go get Caleb, because I'm sure he's tired of waiting. Hooray, I still have move rights. Now he has to catch up to reality. We figure out how slow the thing is. So everybody, welcome Caleb Arana. He runs the... Oops, hold on. Let me change the scene first. That button. Everyone, welcome Caleb Arana. He's in the Twitch chat, and then I believe he's in the YouTube chat too. He runs the SCC Lounge both in game and on Slack, and he just opened a Discord server. So if you guys ever want to talk real minutia about trade and stuff, Caleb is the guy to talk about. And he's an even bitterer vet than I am, so. Oh, my wife made muffins and they exploded. That's so sad. I'm sorry, darling. So do we want to talk about the gross trend in Plex, because that's what everybody wants to know about? I know that beforehand we. Yeah, so I mean, the story that I've been trying to get people to understand is that with all the activity around skill trading, around World War B, and around Citadels, we've been in a... Oh, fuck, there's no noise. Haha. Sorry, you've been muted the whole time. I'm a dick.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Professional. So with all of the talk about because I'm a narcissist, that's why, guys. With all of the talk about why is Plex going down, it's useful to understand just how high the demand is for ISK lately. That skill trading comes out, and then World War B starts, and now Citadels have launched, which mean that there are just endless opportunities where you need cash to actually do things, and the people have been everybody has been investing in Plex as a way to store wealth, just like you would bury gold in your backyard. This is where people have been stashing their money under the mattress. And so the gross trend of Plex being down has to do with that ISK velocity being high and ISK demand being high, and the ability for people to that they want the cash more than they want the Plex is really what's coming on.
And then when you add the fact that because of the speculation and stuff from the patch, everything is more expensive ISK-wise, so that pushes up the demand for ISK even higher. And it also incites people to maybe open their wallets more. So we got a lot of wallet warriors, a lot of stockpiles of stored Plex, and all these things. And then we now recently, because of the taxes, we got the floor falling out. And then the panic just goes crazy because people that are maybe not used to having patience with the markets get really scared and start panic dumping, really. So we got a lot of things working at once, and I would not be surprised if we fall all the way down under 900 million. But of course, that's maybe a little bit premature.
Yeah, to get to 900 million over the summer, I can imagine a timeline that gets there, right? Like I can sort of get behind you in a 6 to 8 week kind of time frame, glancing up against that 900 line. But I still think that, and as much as so in the past, I have a lot of people have said, well, people care a lot about round numbers, and here's a TED talk about how much people care about round numbers, and so like they're going to feel specific about a specific feeling about 1 billion ISK Plex, and we will either get stuck at that ceiling or we can't crash through that floor. And I think the reality is that the players care less about the decimal point than we think they do.
Yeah, and also the fact that as the war ramps up and as the casino ISK starts running dry and things like that, we're going to see a lot of impact of all of that on ISK, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of it has been stored in Plex, the profits. And we talked about this in the last show, in the after hours. The market changes have caused a lot of things to happen, and then coming with the war, I don't think psychology can keep the value of Plex up. But of course, it's going to be artificial because the actual value is closer to like 1.1, 1.2 billion. And it will start creeping up towards that again at some point. But right now we are in the panic zone.
Well, so I agree with you on the panic, especially in May. Like, I think that we're going to see things stay weak and under the 1 billion line for May for sure. The thing is that as the war wraps up, which I think the bows are going to get tied on that here in the next couple of weeks, I expect those I Want ISK guys to move back into Plex and start being some of the pressure back into that. I don't think it's enough to really say that they'll stem the tide and they're, I Want ISK is the people who set the price of Plex. I'm not going to go that far, but this is why I don't think we can really go below the 950 line in my book, is that everyone else who knows what they're doing is going to say, oh, well, anything under $1 billion is gravy, and the stop orders should keep us from sliding much further. We don't tend to see Plex go under the RSI, the RSI oversold line very often. But the trend, I think we're going to stay really flat over the summer is the thing that I don't think a lot of the casual investors are really prepared for, is that we'll be in this 950, 1 billion, 1.05 band over the entire summer. And we might see some heat in the fall like we usually do. But I also expect that heat to not be as hot as it has been in years past. Because I expect receipts from ISK fountains, ISK faucets, to be reduced going forward. That I think CCP is doing a lot of sideways nerfs, the kind of nerfs that you don't have to put in patch notes. To the ISK faucets. Things like the carrier change means the carrier ratting is harder, which means the ISK per hour coming out of ratters is going down. And though total receipts might go up slightly as more people are ratting, it becomes more democratic. The less centralized that becomes, the less monolithically it's going to behave, and it's going to weaken that particular income stream.
Yeah, and especially because players really need to get used to the new normal, right? So their income streams have been kind of nerfed or changed so much that they need to figure out where are they going to get their ISK from and where are they going to regain the game. So this is what we are looking at, and I think that's going to take maybe 2-3 months, because the complexity level of this change is huge, and then we are going to see the war going to turn from a hot war to a lukewarm war that might actually last a lot longer than most people have expected.
Yeah, I do expect that we should see a low boil as renters are installed in goon conquered space and neighbors start fighting again. We stop seeing the unified blob that was the Imperium turn into a bunch of fighting neighbor states, similar to when Bob collapsed. And so I think that we're in for what will be good for the game. The thing is that as Quant releases his monthly market reports, I think we're going to see a lot of the ISK faucets shorten slowly and in a way that I don't think players are really prepared for, which actually I'm glad for, because we've seen devs like Fozzie try to move the needle with some of his stuff, and I've always thought he has more of a sledgehammer than a surgical knife when it comes to his moves. And things like the battleship change, which took like 2 years to wash out to the intended change, because it was just
Yeah,
inherently obvious what to do.
and this one is really going to be something that I think you're going to be applauding because it sounded a lot like he's going to shift a lot of the ISK faucets onto and change things like the loot tables to be more focused on industrialists and actually then inadvertently on market people. So you're going to see the free ISK faucets are going to dry up a bit, and it's going to be changed to a lot of different modes. And if he brings on the meta and faction changes onto other modules except for citadels and capitals, then you're going to start seeing something really massive change.
Yeah, and the so like you've said before, I think there's going to be a lot more money coming in through fees schedules. So we'll see they're not strictly sinks, but they're avenues of redistribution, which is fine. And I think we may see more material acquisition. But the thing is that material faucets rely on ISK faucets to pay for them. So I'm not sure exactly where those things will go.
Well,
And
that's going to be a redistribution too, right? Because what you will see then is that all these now player versus player taxations, that the fact that citadels are going to be giving players better revenue streams, so the ISK will flow between players instead of in and out of game. So instead of ISK faucet and ISK sinks, they're basically going to turn both of those down and just leave the ISK in our own ecosystem. And
yeah,
then it's
is that
going to
ISK
be up to
velocity
us
will go
to,
up.
yeah, and that means that we will see a lot of more development in turning raw into things that can then be destroyed. But then in the meantime, in the period before the Citadel gets destroyed, you're going to be able to then pull some ISK out. So you're basically going to be converting raw into ISK, but it's other players' ISKs. It's not a faucet.
Yeah, the my only worry, so just the devil advocate worry here is that if we're not really careful with pulling the gas off of those fountains, which I totally agree that the fountains need to be pulled back. I'd pull the reins a bit tighter, but I believe in Quant more than my own ability. That as you pull back those reins, we still have to deal with the fact that player retention needs to stay high for that to stay true, right? Like the second that people stop logging into the game, that ISK just goes into a cave and doesn't come back, like until they come back. And you run the danger of, if you're not printing the ISK enough to make up for those players that need to take a break, or if the game slumps in popularity without a major war or a major event to do it, that ISK won't come back through. Now they are heading that off at the pass with their dailies proposal, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I haven't had a chance. I'm not much of an Evo forum warrior, so I'm kind of behind the curve on that one.
Well, it's just another one of those premature ejaculations that CCP tends to do. It's like they have an idea, and CCP Ghost was doing a really good presentation on where he wants to take things like the PV experience, the whole thing with opportunities and other things that might be law related. He's got a lot of good ideas, but we got the patch that actually put in the first test run. It's not even a beta, it's an alpha feature. There's nothing there yet. There's like, go shoot one rat. So they should have left that on the test server. It should never go on Tranquility, because until there's something to actually work with and see where they're going to try and take this will just enrage players. And you've seen that on Reddit. It's been going crazy. And I agree that as it stands now, it looks like shit. But eventually, if they start stacking more functionality, features, basically creating what I would call a proper achievement system, you're going to see something really interesting. And it's most likely going to be very good for player retention, because that's very much the solo casual player centric.
Well, and as much as the people are crying that the sky is falling, I think CCP can go back to their board and say, well, look at Project Discovery. That thing is printing a pretty penny. If you talk to some of the people like Yadaron or the other big people in that circle, but and it's free ISK to grab. It's not a great income until you grind some levels, but that has not had as big an effect on the game as people say. And even the people who are saying like that they hate the idea of skill point dailies, and I understand the knee jerk on this one, and I kind of want to agree with all you people, but and anything before the but doesn't count if we're all Game of Thrones fans. The we expected the same sky is falling from skill point trading, and all of the stuff that would ruin the game, like to print another 250,000 skill points a month on top of the 2.5 to 2.8 million that you can make with plus fives. It's a half extractor a month, and it requires a lot of activity to actually earn it. And I think that's I actually think that's an even better reward than the skill injectors themselves. So I don't think it's as dangerous as the people keep saying. Now, I don't know if what's the maximum 390 that you could get with the current proposal, and I would want the median return. I'd want the median returns at about 100,000 a month, and I'd want the Q75 at maybe 250,000. With that style of like 22-hour dailies, I think that's.
Yeah, but you're touching upon the key thing that you mentioned, is that it's pretty much active, right? You have to undock and kill that rat. You have to actually, with the Project Discovery, you have to keep running the slides, right?
Yeah, and
there's a huge burnout if you want to try and game it to the levels that people that are crying the sky's falling say, right? It's okay. There's been a few with Project Discovery that really have been grinding like crazy, but most of them has dropped to like a quarter of the activity level. So they're not printing that much ISK, and they're not going to print that much skill points. I would be surprised if it changes the price of skill points with more than 1 or 2%. I don't even think you're going to be able to measure it. Not even if they expand on the feature so it's more popular, because if there's other things than skill points from that achievement system, you're not going to get only skill points. You're going to be focusing on other things as well. So I don't think that the fears are warranted. It makes no sense. It's a perfect change to the game, adding something that actually gets people active. It's really a good feature design when you look at it like that.
Yeah, and I actually some of the more gamified ways of like of gating some of that content might be a better idea, or at least splitting some of the rewards, because I know personally I've been in points where it's like the cash would be more useful, or some generic loyalty points for cosmetics would be great. So I'd like to see some options, because I think that I think that we continue to see that people really grossly overvalue skill points. And we were talking about this long before the show came on the air in the Discord, that if you're skill point farming, like the thing you really worry about with this feature from the dev side, if we're gonna be CCP Lockefox and CCP Caleb, is that what will this do to injectors? And the answer is almost nothing, because injector farming is a passive income source. it's 100. It's nearly 100% passive. Like you load up your skill, you load up your queue, you buy the plexus and the extractors. You come back in 30 days. You harvest those skill points out. You sell them for the little bit of markup ISK. You rinse and repeat. And to then say, well, but I could get another half extractor if I logged in every day. You say, that's all this. That's 30 times more work than you were putting in for 25% more return. No one's going to do it. Like there'll be a couple of Chinese gold farmers, but not enough.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the whole thing that you've been talking about with when you've been talking about your worries on the Plex parity thing. These things are all going to be tied into the Plex price in ISK and the Plex price in real life money, and it's going to be tied into how many farms are being used, how much skill points are actually being traded. And these are all going to be sensitive to how much ISK is being printed, how much Plex is being injected into the economy, so that could be converted into time and thus then go back into that whole ecosystem. It's a rather complicated ecosystem, and every time someone is trying to talk about it, it sounds as if they're missing one or two pieces. So I think that they have actually got a proper flow chart in CCP, and I think they really thought about this. When I look at the features that we were talking about with the active printing of ISK and active printing of skill points, if you start thinking about it, it looks like they're going to remove things away from passive production, whether it's PI raw materials or AFK ratting or things like that. Everything is going to go into a new sort of ecosystem, and I suspect that they've actually been thinking about this more than they've let on. I saw Fozzie sitting there laughing very smugly on the structures roundtable. I think they have thought about this a lot more than we believe, and the whole idea smells really good to me. It looks as if they're finally fixing some of the things that's been a problem.
Well, and so Mirage has been saying in the YouTube channel, and sorry for ignoring you guys, right? We've got, when Caleb and I talk, it goes on forever. That I do understand that there is that when it comes to this sort of Skinner Boxian incentive system to abuse it. I mean, how many times have we seen mobile games and Facebook games that are like, you have to log in every 22 hours or every 4 hours to go collect your whatevers. And EVE players are particularly susceptible to that sort of trap of like, well, if it's on a 22-hour cycle, that just means I got to get up early on this day and stay up late on this day, and I'll get an extra 2 portions of cake for the month, kind of thing, for all of that extra suffering. I mean, that's because that was me. I've done that.
I hope you're not entirely right, because one of the things with these Korean Skinner box grind things is that I think it's one of the things that really hurt player retention. So I hope that they're going to do this in a way so it doesn't feel like it, but it feels like they are rewarding if you log in, regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So the diversification of options to benefit from active gameplay is what they're going to focus on. So they're going to basically create some sort of averaging income thing based on whether it's AFK income or whether it's active income. And I think they're going to do something like what you've been talking about average incomes depending on skill levels, activity levels, and all that. So we get some sort of, I don't know, mean salary thing going.
Yeah, and like the thing, the piece of that Skinner box I worry about are the sort of incentives for streaks, I think, is the really dangerous piece of that puzzle. And I don't know if that's in the proposal yet. I'm hoping it's not. That you're absolutely right. As long as there's like the little bit of carrot, like you logged in and, well, you may have lost everything on the thing, but hey, you got enough to go back or whatever the thing, and you at least got the whatever skill points, and thanks for being here. Have your cookie. Like that sort of behavior, I think is all right. But when you start saying like, you need to be logged in. You need to keep your login combo days up, and if you miss more than 2 in 6 days, then the combo goes down, and you only get a 2x multiplier instead of a 3x multiplier, and that's the sort of behavior that I think is extremely dangerous and leads certain it preys on certain personalities, and it will especially with the median sort of Eve player getting up there in ages. I think that turns a lot of them off immediately. Like, you want me to be logged in every day? Screw you.
Yeah, I think you're moving more into Pavlovian than Skinner boxing. But yeah, I agree with you. It's the whole flashing thing and about the things in the air vents and all that from casinos. But I think they're going to find a good balance. Also because they as we talked about already, they seem to be moving more into that being player versus player rewards, right? So you're going to get rewarded from what you do when you interact with other players, whether you're building a Citadel or trading on the market or whatever you're doing. If you are killing a player or being killed by a player, something is going to, if not reward, then at least incentivize you further, whether it's negative or positive reinforcement, right?
Yeah, and I think that like the piece of this that already exists in game that has been an anchor for me in the past, less so in more current times, is that I think there are pieces of the PI puzzle you can pull from to sort of bring inspiration in and say, well, like if you were doing low end PI before they screwed up and made the taxes all complicated and the all the stuff that's around customs offices now, you could basically build your farms, and you'd go tend your farms on reasonably short scales. Like, there was no way you could do it weekly, but every other day was doable. And well, it may not make a ton of money, but it'd keep your POS fueled, and you get this thing done, and you could be sort of you got the rural farmer thing going, and that sort of attitude, I think, is what I'm hoping they're aiming for, and where I hope they land in that particular regard.
I think it's important to note here and disclose to everyone watching, in structures in Slack, Nullable has been talking a lot about introducing new POCOs with new mechanics. I'm not entirely sure where they're going to end up, but there seem to be a lot of good ideas and plans for how to change POCOs to make them more interactable. So you'll be able to do something like moving your assets from Planet to POCO and from POCO to Citadel. So it's going to be a lot easier to streamline your production chain and utilizing the profit and all that stuff. So then when you add the tax on top of that from the POCO owner and from the Citadel owner, you're going to see a lot of more active dynamic stuff where people are considering what's the tax this month and how am I affiliated with the group that actually owns the hardware. All these things are going to be a lot more player versus player centric. So really important things if they introduce a new POCO mechanic.
Well, and that touches again to our particular thing that we could go for another hour about how I'm hoping that they really consider taxes and fees to be a little more depth in that space, because I've railed about it for a while now that even though the tax increase, I understand how it is, and I don't think it's a terrible change. It's barely a half measure for what really needs to be done, what could be done with taxes to make
if
things
again
move around.
It's important. I didn't get to talk to any of the DevFleet guys or Entity or any of those that can usually figure out why things go weird and wrong. And I know that the market's legacy code is horrible, but if you looked at some of the UI errors that we were getting with the patch, it might actually hint at more complexity being in the belly of the beast. So they might actually already be ready to roll out something more along the lines of what you are talking about tax-wise. I think this one we got now is just sort of the first step on a process of creating a tax system that makes sense and that incentivizes players to create more active content.
Well, yeah, and it's grooming players to be to solve some of the pain points of market behavior with through mechanics. So things like we've talked about 100 times in the past about, oh well, it's too easy to play the one ISK war for no good reason, and if you it doesn't make sense, for instance, to have large groups of orders when you can split it up 4 or 5 ways to beat your way around the lockout timer. And cheesing your way around those mechanics means that you have a bunch of people who know the tricks and a bunch of noobs who don't, and it's really not fair or fun particularly. And I'm hoping that you're right, and we see more stuff come through that makes those decisions interesting, because that's what my beef with the tax system is right now, is that it isn't strictly interesting. It's a flatter tax. But it now says that you really need to be invested in your trade skill to 5, which is a step backwards in my opinion. And there's no real no really great decision besides maybe looking for a local Citadel to try and cheese some of those fees, like you had been saying I think last week, where dreaming of having a Citadel in like New Caldari that is a materials way station, like a material depot, like where bulk traders are able
basically
to
a retailer. I think what's interesting is what Marsha Mallow, if we can name drop her once again, she mentioned something that I had not even considered. As the other structures start rolling out, there shouldn't be anything hindering CCP adding the ability to have market modules on all of them, theoretically. So you could basically resell directly from your industry Citadel, your industry structures, and the same with your harvesting structures. If you can do that, and you will have things like contracts, so you can get logistics and set up your freight and your courier contracts. If all these things become possible, you're going to have a lot more opportunity to do complicated things and player created corporational structures, really. So at each point there will be different taxations and different pricings, and that's really something that would just make the ecosystem so much more complicated.
Yeah, and that's like since I've been walking around Seattle lately and got to go downtown and see the big docks and all the depots that get stuff off of those big freight ships and onto trains and all that. Like after talking last week, I would really love to have that sort of like you need tritanium you need 100 million units of tritanium at a go. Well, you come down to this place because we're only one jump out of JITA and we're more centrally located on some of these things, and we've arranged the fee schedule so that freighters get in and out without problem, and maybe there's a little bit of fee on the docking for normal plebes, and those trading fees make a lot more sense when you're talking about the sort of things where the margins get really tight. So you're high, you're low in minerals and that kind of thing.
Just to answer Tambra's question, if there should be more complexity, this is not just complexity for the sake of complexity. This is more like opportunity or availability of features for players to take over what's already slightly happening in NPC markets, right? The player should have the ability to set up something that services other players, and that will lead to some added complexity level. But it's good that you can't then gamify the system. You can't just figure out exactly where the best opportunities are by making a third-party tool or scraping a database or something like that. You have to actually be in the game, making the deals with the owners of the structures and stuff like that. So you are benefiting by your real activity and your real connections. And yes, that's more complicated, but it's very, very good for the ecology.
Yeah, and Eve is that's one of the big selling points of Eve is it's not about solving for an eigenvector in a systems of equations, where there is a best solution, and you just need to put all of the numbers in an array and come out with the best solution, which is a problem for all games.
And this ties into what he asked in his second line here about billboards. We were talking in, I think it was in Slack, about billboards in general, and people were saying that they want NPCs to sell access to billboards. And as I was mentioning, well, that would make no sense if they're going to bring in the actual structures that are billboards in space that players can own and benefit from by selling the space. You're going to destroy any opportunity to create content if NPCs do this. So if they don't put in any NPC service at all, what you're going to see when they bring in the billboards is the first advertising wars, where people will actually go to war, destroy the structures, try to deny the service, and try to be the dominant player in a region. And that's going to be extremely interesting to follow.
And Token LLC is asking about Plex, and same if we ignore yesterday, which I would really love to talk about yesterday, but I can't talk about yesterday.
There will be a post-mortem soon.
There will be, yeah. I hope that we get to actually know what the real reason was, because it's a good one. I just can't talk about it. So what happened yesterday was a few things. One, it's another beat in the same story that we've been seeing for 3 months, where we have a liquidity squeeze. People want cash. People need cash. They'd rather have cash ISK than Plex, and Plex has been extremely efficient vehicle for translating cash to store back and forth. And I know Caleb and I and the rest of the SEC guys were talking before the show about some deeper specifics about the professional traders doing one thing and the casual traders who just basically heard buy gold, buy gold. Reality is a hologram. Buy gold.
Good one.
Don't really understand. Are panicking, and that's going to cause some effects. So there's a couple of things going on. One, we're seeing a cash squeeze ahead of Citadel. Getting into Citadel, I think we're going to see some more weakness over the weekend, because there have been a lot of reports of people not properly budgeting their BPO buys, where they're like, yeah, I can buy that Citadel BPO, and fuck, what am I going to put on it? And have to go buy like an extra 10 billion worth of BPOs. So that's number one. So that's a downward force. Number two.
Yeah, they've been under budgeting, right?
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
they were doing best case, and then they suddenly realized that, hang on, I need to put all these things in, and all these are requiring these materials, and they have been over speculative and going to like 200%. So now all my budget numbers are wrong, and I need to redo them and figure out if I even have liquidity. And then that's going to bring even further pressure on the Plex thing, because then they're going to need more ISK to then redistribute more ISK in the current system, right? So a lot of things are going to happen.
So that's number one.
And then you got the small traders doing the panic jumping.
Yeah,
and then
that's
you got
number
the big traders that have been paying attention to the patch and the bugs, and they're basically pulling the rug, and then there's no fucking floor. So you're going to get a hard smash from a lot of players.
So yeah, that's the second part of the story, is that there's panic right now, right? Like yesterday, if you guys were on Reddit, the prices were tanking hard. It was every hour we were down another 10 million ISK on the prices, and that flash crash is going to have its own story. I can't share more information about that yet. It's a good one though. The thing is that shock is going to go through the rest of the system for all of the casual investors who have been hoarding maybe sub 50 billion, let's say, more like 20 billion in Plex, and saying, you guys said that Plex was a safe investment and it can only go up, and you lied, you're wrong, and panic, sell before the things, before I lose my whole house. And that's going to cause more downward pressure. The thing is that I disagree with you, Caleb, about what the professional investors are doing, because I think that they're going to be slurping up every delicious Plex down to that 950 line, and it's going to be hard to get under that particular floor with the way orders are set up right now.
Oh, I was not referring to Plex. I was referring to all the other markets. Where the reason that there's all these bugs means that everyone has been canceling all their orders because they're not going to risk things like modification bugs in the actual market code. So, well, when I started seeing those, I think Reaver saw a 200,000 order that, when modified, had a 7 million broker fee or something like that in the visuals. And I just went, okay, if any of this has any reality, I'm just not touching it at all. I'm not modifying anything. I'm not touching anything. I'm leaving it as it is, and I'm canceling the ones that might be risky. And I think a lot of people did that when they heard that there was bugs.
Yeah, and those bugs are going to cause some short-term problems. I expect those to get hot fixed though soon. Like, they better be fixed soon.
How are they going to handle the payback? Do they even know how that was paid out? In what direction? What was positive? What was negative in the fees when people modified? I don't.
I believe in CCP Quant and his half terabyte of RAM. That machine that he was processing all of the assets with. I'm sure that one can figure it out. It might take a little bit more time to get that figured out. He might have a bad weekend, but I believe that that will get pretty darn close to legit really reasonably quickly. Like, the without the market working efficiently, Eve is fucked. And if devs have to pull a long weekend to fix the market, I fully expect them to.
Well, to answer bigwigs, I'm not going to go into details with the broker fees and the taxing, but the point is that since the patch, you're basically looking at something like up to an 8 times higher broker fee or total fees on your orders when you're looking at both ways. So there's a huge change, and this has been done specifically to incentivize players to use Citadels to the markets to actually compete with NPC. It's similar to what they try to do with the industry index, but the industry index they haven't allowed to actually run amok and get to a level where people no longer want to build in Jita. They're just adding the price onto the product. But now we're looking at, I think we're getting closer to 10-20% of the value when you add industry index and you then add the market fees. So now if players still won't move, it's going to cost them. And the traders are then going to add further markup. It's exactly like in the real world. If price of coffee goes up by 2%, your coffee in the store is going to go up by 5 or 10%. So This is what you're going to see. And if players still then don't move out, then they're just stupid, because there's going to be huge profits to be made just by moving out one jump or putting up your own Citadel. Well, it's going to be worth the risk.
Yeah, and I think I still think that the incentive to actually pull the trigger on a Citadel might still require some more prodding to be like the most obvious thing. Like, I still think they're a pretty big risk cost-wise.
Well, not for the assets. The asset safety is free if it's in the same system. So there's no risk to the people using it publicly.
No. The users, there's nothing stopping, as long as you have docking rights, like to not use a Citadel that you actually have access to, and as long as the only thing I worry about is the API visibility, just because that's a quality of life thing that makes life so much easier. But we can argue about that another night. The thing is that the person who has to foot the bill originally better have a pretty darn good business plan in place to make sure that investment's protected.
When there's enough in the wild, right? When there's enough citadels being put up in the wild, the strain to actually take them down again by aggressors is going to become harder and harder. And if they then also fix war mechanics, you're going to start looking at something that might make. I was considering that if they really wanted to mess with the creep tactics, they could do something relatively like the bounty system. So if you want to war deck me and I have a citadel, you have to put up X% in escrow, right? That you will then get paid out when you destroy it.
Yeah, we're gonna have
As
to
a
end the show here,
mechanic,
though,
right?
man. Like, I can't let you open that can of worms.
No. I know. I have to go too. I got it's 6 o'clock. No, 7 o'clock here.
Oh Lord, yeah. Go greet the sunrise. So everybody who's still tuned in, this has been the Prosper Market Show, post show, after dark. I don't know, with our special guest Caleb Arana. You can catch him at the SCC Lounge. That's both in game, out of game on Slack. He just started up a Discord server, which I'm not sure how you want to share those links because they expire every 24 hours.
No. You can set them to infinite.
Okay.
The link is in the Slack, in the description of the Slack channel, and it's also in game in the MOTD.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you can go pick Caleb's brain. He's the guy I go to because I'm a numbers guy more than a real market guy. So I'm always glad to have him on.
Very glad to be here. It's nice. And just if I can plug something, this weekend I might be ready to open my own stream, and it's going to be on the Eve Guardian on Twitch, and then the show will go on the YouTube and all that. But I'm still just getting things ready. But there should be a show this weekend, so I hope anyone that's listening will drop by, and if nothing else, then troll us a little bit.
Yeah, trolling is the best. Thanks again for having coming on the show. Thanks everyone who tuned in. Like the fact that we had 100 people in the chat in watching the stream just absolutely melts my brain. I really can't say thanks enough to you guys. Thanks again, Caleb, for being our post show guest and being patient while I while I strung you along. We're gonna go ahead.
Then next week will be even more interesting because maybe the postmortem will be out.
Maybe. I think it might take 2 weeks before we actually get to see the real thing. But I'm pushing for an 07 show report.
Oh yeah, that would be epic.
So thanks again, Caleb. Thanks again, everybody who tuned in. We're live every Friday at 0300. Follow us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and the blog. Eve Prospers, all you got to know. If you enjoy the show and you can contribute, our patrons keep us on the air. Patreon.com/Eve Prosper. They pay our bills. They keep the show ad free. We don't gate any content so that everybody can have it, and it's thanks to our patrons. If you can't contribute monetarily, totally understand. That's absolutely fine. Tell all your friends how awesome Eve Prosper is. We will be back next week. We'll also be subscribed on YouTube because I will be releasing a Plex breakdown in depth to really talk about how Plex works in sort of a bigger picture, so you guys can understand some of the deeper mechanics that are going on that set the prices. So you too can be a super professional Plex speculator like me and get it wrong half the time still. So thanks again. We'll be back next week. Fly safe. Make a ton of money. Yeah.